mean, Please Don't Ask was probably the most personal song I'd ever written, and if you put it on face value, it fits perfectly. It was all about my kids, you know, and it was all about conversational. I was very influenced by a song by David Ackles called Down River, and it was like one side of a conversation on the phone, you know. Hey, you're looking great. Whatever happened to that guy? Oh, you're together. Oh, okay. You know, you imagine the other side of the conversation, and Please Don't Ask was a bit like that, you know, and very, very personal. And I, you know, it was strange. I found myself thinking, what am I doing singing this song on a Genesis record? This is because I know the people that buy Genesis records aren't really. They're not going to be touched by this, and yeah, I mean, I'm sure they were if you know, when they heard it. But
why would they not be touched? Because their expectations would be different.
Yes, yeah, their expectations would be of a Genesis kind of direction, and this was me really bearing my soul, if you like. And I mean, we chose it because. Misunderstanding, you know, I played this stuff to Mike and Tony at my house in Guildford, and I said, this is what I've been doing, you know, pick whatever you want. And I had written Misunderstanding kind of based on a Sail on Sailor, Beach Boys kind of feel, and I knew Tony liked the Beach Boys, well, Mike and Tony did, but that kind of ding 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 ding. I sail an ocean, that was what it was kind of built on, and Tony fell for it, you know, and so okay, fair enough. It's not a tremendously personal song to me, so I like it very much. But you know, but when he chose Please Don't Ask, I think it was because it had a Beatley kind of taste, and it also was a little bit like the Electric Light Orchestra doing the Beatles, and maybe it was piano based, and Tony liked that, you know. But I thought, God, that's one of the most personal songs I've ever written, you know, and here we are going to do it in Genesis. So, you know, in a way, I suppose I should have been flattered that the guys thought that my writing had come along to the point, you know, where it was touching them as well, and they wanted it on the record, so it's all good. I think it would have been probably better if it had been on face value, but you know, because I just feel that period I just wanted to play what I was writing, you know, and I think it ended up sounding okay. I mean, Mike wrote very good guitar lines that I would never have written. But it is a different kind of song for Genesis to do. If you start off on a certain level of being very open and honest, then there's nowhere else to go, you know. So you know, I mean, it's not like you work up to being embarrassed. You come straight in and you're embarrassed. I mean, because you know, people were saying, it's a little bit uncomfortable for me to listen to this, you know. But that's the reason I started, you know, writing songs. So I didn't have any problem with being completely honest. So you know, that's where I came in, and so I kind of just got used to that's the way it was for me. So whenever there was a song about relationships, it was always autobiographical to some extent.
Well, that's why they're good songs.
Maybe.
You know, the sort of, it taps into something that people recognise. I mean, that's
well, when you said earlier about, you know, people hanging on every word and all that, it's because at one point people felt like they knew me, you know, and I was just like them, you know. Whereas Peter was this said mysterious traveller, who kind of was not like them. He was one to be admired from a distance. I was much more available, much more honest, and if it makes you cry, it's going to make me cry. If it's going to make you laugh, it's going to make me laugh, kind of thing. And I think that that's definitely what I get. I mean, I get letters about that as well from people that can relate to this, can relate to that, and they feel like I understood them, because what happened to me happened to them, and they kind of live through it and get it get off their chest, the same as I got it off mine. Yeah.
Do you have any regrets? Sorry, put that down. I never look at it anyway. Do you have any regrets about putting your heart on your sleeve in a way in your songs? I mean, you then get the other side of it, the sort of nasty comments and so on.
What kind of nasty comments?
Well, yes, I'm just thinking of the sort of stuff that people start to write about, because you're so open, you're right there, and the music critic or whoever starts to say Genesis is sold out, it's all Phil Collins love songs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing that kind of, sometimes they get it wrong. I mean, literally that point you just made, for example, I mean, I remember playing Radio City in New York, and Rolling Stone had done a big article where I'd been pretty frank about things, and it also coincided with a Genesis single called Taking It All Too Hard, which was turned out was a Mike Rutherford song, or Mike Rutherford lyric anyway. And I remember being backstage at Radio City celebrating after this show, and someone said, "There's a phone call for you." So I said, "Okay, who the hell would be that big?" I mean, I've never been telephoned at a gig, but it was my first wife. She said, "Right, I've just read this Rolling Stone interview." Right. I said, she said, "You've got to stop doing this, talking about this." And I said, "Well, this is, I get asked and I reply. And this new single, Taking It All Too Hard, for God's sake, stop writing this stuff." I said, "I didn't write it. It was Mike Rutherford." And, sometimes the critics get it wrong, that they assume that if it's about two people, that it's me, whereas it might easily be, it probably wouldn't be Tony Banks, but it certainly might be Mike, And, as things have got slightly simpler, they assume that's me, as opposed to being the way the band has changed, or the way the band wrote that particular song. I mean, they jump into the sometimes the most obvious conclusions. I mean, and it's just, the wrong conclusion. And one of the things, I have a beef about is that I don't know if it's critics or some of these fans that are on these particular, websites, and the internet has made it so that everybody can have their own particular website if you want. But they all kind of generally blame me for Genesis being popular, more popular than they were. And they kind of mourn the passing of the Genesis with Peter style of music, which is typical of what we did in the 70s. And I think we touched on this when we spoke. All of us spoke together. But, you know, none of us now, you know, would wear the same clothes as we wore when we were 25, or read the same books, or, you know, express ourselves in the same way. And things change, you know, and so that's the reason some things have got simpler or more direct or whatever. I mean, it's an obvious thing. It's not just, you know, me basically persuading everybody that I should run the ship or anything. I mean, anybody that knows the guys in Genesis knows that that's not possible. You know, it's a three-piece band, and we take a good idea when it's a good idea. But you know, it's I won't take the credit and I won't take the blame. You know, I mean, we're just popular, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we just got more popular, and I think, you know, I mean, I understand that. Sometimes when you've got a thing that, you know, you feel is your thing, it's accessible, it's easy to get tickets to because, you know, it's not the big thing. As soon as that becomes big, you've lost your little secret, and it's now difficult to get tickets, and now you're going to play less because, you know, it's, you know, people get annoyed with that because their world has been changed, but there's no particular big reason for it.
I mean, do people seriously think that prog rock was, that you were just going to stick with that sound for, you know, into the 80s, into the 90s? I mean,
yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I a lot of the time, you know, people, and I think that this was hinted at when we got together and talked. People will, you know, depending on what's happening in their lives, you know, maybe that was the happiest time of their life. So that's what, you know, they kind of have great feelings about it. That, you know, I remember that album. Yeah, that was the album when I met Deirdre. You know, it's kind of one of those things that relates to, you know, that was the best, because that was the best days of our lives, you know. And, well, but I mean, if you start worrying about, you know, you can only do what you want to do and be yourself, you know.
A lot of people say that 80s Genesis is the sound of their generation, you know.
Yeah.
It's like they've got fantastic memories of all those tracks, all those songs being played in different places, you know. But I don't think, I mean, I don't know, we could go on and on about this, you know. It's like, it's one of those core things whenever you raise Genesis. There's this whole argument going on. I think you've dealt with it really well. Let's stop it now.
Yeah, and it's only music, you know. But
yeah,
I think it's very flattering, you know, to be called the soundtrack, you know, to be part of something that people call the soundtrack of their lives. I mean, I've heard it a lot, you know, from people. I mean, it just so happens, you know, you go through periods when you don't hear anything, and then periods when you sort of, everybody you meet in the street says something, you know, and you know, but the people that you don't even think are old enough to actually have the 80s as being, you know, something that they were even witness to, but, you know, it's because their mum and dads had it on in the house or something. But they say, you know, like, I grew up with your music, and so therefore, you know, you're pretty special to me. You know, and that's like, it's what I mean, that's fantastic for someone that writes. I mean, that kind of almost negates all the negative stuff, all the bad stuff that's said, because it actually has touched some people's lives, and whether it's Genesis or me, it's great to have that said about what you do. So when someone says, you know, can I have your autograph? I hope it doesn't bother you. You say, why would it bother me? You're just saying, I like what you do. you know, that's nice.
Invisible touch, for instance, is it? I mean, that's kind of like the peak of Jonas's popularity. 5 top 10 US records, singles, amazing. And I was thinking, you know, Land of Confusion on the one hand, and Invisible Touch is kind of there's a lot of sort of relationship songs, most of them actually, and there's the issue songs. You know, it's kind of, and that seems to be the same in the We Can't Dance as well. You know, this sort of balance of relationship and issues. I mean, was that a kind of a conscious thing, that what you wrote songs about?
No, it wasn't conscious. I mean, I think the way we were working was, you know, using the drum machine, as we said, kind of freed me up to sing when we were improvising. So some of the things that, you know, I was singing would lead to what the lyric would be about. And even if I didn't write the lyric, because, you know, I might have sung certain lines quite often. Home by the Sea, for example, was a line that I sang, and Tony picked up on that and used that as the basis for that song. He went away and wrote the lyrics. Home by the Sea, it was a ghost story. No Son of Mine, I remember singing that, particularly, you know, as a chorus, but there was also, all throughout the improvisation, there's lots of little little things. You instead of going la 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 la, you actually have a, you know, stream of consciousness that just sort of puts words together, and that's the way I've always really written lyrics. Yeah, I'll improvise and then listen back to what I improvised and see if there's something I'm trying to say in there. And so No Son of Mine, I took that away and I wrote the lyric to that.
Quite a dark song. Right?
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, there was never, I mean, Mike, I don't know, I mean, he just chose to write the lyrics to Land of Confusion. I mean, that was the issue song, and I'm not quite sure what drove that. But sometimes it was from what was trying to be sung by the guide vocal or the improvised stuff, and sometimes it was relationship stuff. Hold On My Heart. That was actually a line of John Martin's that I'd played on an album that I'd produced of his, and I thought it was a lovely line, and it just seemed to work, and so, you know, I sang it to the piece that we were writing, and that became, you know, very much a relationship song. But
it's interesting about John Martin, actually. I didn't know that. Something I didn't know.
What's that?
About it. It was a John Martin. I knew you worked on his albums.
Hold On My Heart was
Yeah.
was the title of one of the songs of his Glorious Fool album.
It's actually feels very personal, a moving song, and I can see why millions of people bought it, you know, and played it. It's kind of I don't know. It's one of those sort of great romantic.
Yeah, it's a nice song. Yeah.
Yeah.
It always worked on stage as well because it was so different to anything else, and just sat on a stool and sang it, and sort of sucked people into it, you know. And it was when it worked, it was a lovely moment on stage.
relationship songs. I might have the wrong album here, but In Too Deep.
In Too Deep was Invisible Touch.
Yeah. Now, that again seems. Is that personal to you, or was it who wrote that?
Yeah, well, that song. I got asked, I suppose, to Genesis to write by Ray Cooper, who was handmade films, you know, Monty Python and Harrison, George Harrison. He asked me if I would write a song for a movie that they were doing called Mona Lisa. And I said, yep, of course, I will have a go. And I remember writing the chorus. You know I love you, but I just can't. I remember writing that in Australia. Well, we were on tour, Australia. We were on tour, and I wrote that bit. And I mentioned to the guys in Genesis that I know had been asked to do this, you know, but I wasn't doing a solo record at that time. I mean, I was on Genesis duty, if you like. And so we wrote the rest of it, and that was then we submitted it to Ray, and they liked it. So it became, you know, it was used in the end, but it was. I mean, it was loosely based on the story of that was in the movie. It was Bob Hoskins and a lady whose name I forget. But yeah, it was kind of, the lyric was loosely based on the film, but it was ambiguous enough to be, you know, just a you know, a love song as well, standing outside the movie as well.
It's I don't know. I mean, am I wrong in that it seemed to draw on your experience too, like the In Too Deep thing?
Well, although, you know, I mean, yeah, I mean, any I kind of feel that there's always a bit of me in it. I mean, when it comes to relationship songs, you know.